So it's actually 9:30. Should I wait and think that Dave's going to arrive in the next like 2 minutes, or
Wait until what?
Oh,
yeah.
Dave. Oh, Dave.
Yeah. Right? Is he or Stevie presenting?
I don't know how to do it. Dave doesn't actually have anything to present.
Yeah. If Stevie's doing it, if Stevie's doing it, then no.
Hank is not here. Listen, Dave. I don't know if Nancy was planning. It's not be stuff out of your head.
We don't have a very close one.
Yeah, I would wait a few minutes.
We're just going to wait a few more minutes for some missing folks that we think are, show up.
We have this evening. Let me rephrase that. At least I have.
I haven't seen. So I fixed that.
You did?
Yeah. I made 5.0, 5.5.
Good.
Almost like a short time indication.
Look,
Nice.
I cut and pasted yours. Good time. That, So Dave is strategically showing up later. Wait a second. I'm gonna wait like 45 more seconds and then get going without.
And the smaller rooms, it's like monstrous. I really like the room we had set for about 15 people. Yeah. I find it much more useful for conversation.
USB-C to.
Yes.
Run. What is this thing called again? Rosette.
Ah,
Which is kind of freaky.
it is kind of freaky looking.
Yeah.
Is it edible?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of like that. Okay.
You stole one from me. Just have to try it. Okay. Welcome to the Sacm meeting. If you weren't intending to be at Sacm, you should find the correct room. So Sacm 100, IETF 100 Singapore. Note well, everybody should be really familiar with this at this point. Go find it online if you can't read this fast. We have note takers and jabber scribes. All right. Working group status. I'm going to let you start the stat. You're going to let Karen start the stat? No, Adam, you're starting status, and then you're going to hand over.
So I like to bash the agenda a little bit. Or is it good time? All right. Yeah. So the agenda doesn't look packed. So I wonder whether it's possible at the end to spend a few minutes to kind of talk about the terminology and yeah, the Sacm technology. Thank you.
We'll bash the agenda and we'll add a discussion about terminology after the hackathon report and before the way forward conversation.
Good. All right. So status. You guys can hear me okay? I can't tell if it's going over or not. Status. What is the status? I don't even know what the status is at this point. What? The recharter? Yeah. We've got that moving forward. Thanks. Handoff. Yeah. Two things.
Good morning. So, I'm sorry, clearly your chairs have not had enough caffeine or something this morning. So this is the Sacm working group, as we've already indicated. First of all, we are 3 chairs today because Adam is departing and Chris is coming in. So first of all, we would like to thank Adam for his leadership over the years. The recharter is with the IESG. We have some comments on that I believe have been copied to the list as well as to the chairs. So we will be submitting some updates to that. Beyond that, the rest of it we will discuss in the way forward when we talk about what our next documents are. So that is all we have for way forward. Stephen, you ready?
Hi, Dave Woltermeyer. One quick question before Stephen. Were you planning on covering draft status as part of now, or the status part, or at the end maybe for next steps? Draft status?
Draft status we're going to cover under way forward next steps.
Okay.
But we didn't properly coordinate that, but we are now well coordinated.
Okay. No problem. Okay, I'm Stephen Banghart with NIST. I'm going to be providing a little bit of a cross-working group update first, and then using that as a lead-in to the Sacm draft here that relates to that. So I'm going to be talking about the ROLI draft that's in MILE, Resource-Oriented Lightweight Information Exchange. This is just a really brief update on its current status so that everyone here is aware of that, since it does impact a couple of the drafts here in Sacm. So next slide, please. That's... all the slides now have to somersault before they exit. Okay, so the ROLI draft in MILE is currently in IESG review. We were navigating a few remaining issues that were blocking the discusses of that draft. As of just a couple days ago, we have resolved those primary issues, and we are now fully expecting those discusses to be cleared as soon as we post a new version of the draft in the next couple of days. So the current version that is in MILE is version 13. Once we post 14, that will be the one clearing the remaining issues, and hopefully, with any luck, that is the final version. We've had really great reviews so far from IESG, AD, last call, all of those steps. We've had a great number of editorial changes, a lot of great review, and a small number of minor normative changes. And I'll cover some of those briefly, I think, on my next slide. If we go there. I didn't, so I'll go over it really quick. The primary change that we did to clear the discusses on that Rolly core draft was remove the IANA registrations for the .well-known URL location. This instead is going to be moved into a new Rolly service discovery draft. This is going to be a new document that describes how one might actually locate the Rolly repository. And if you want to hear more about that, I'm going to be talking about that draft and talking about the changes in detail in Mile, which I believe is on Thursday. Yes, Thursday afternoon is Mile. So if you're interested in hearing more about those changes, you can come there. So on to this draft, the back one, sorry, I didn't actually make it to that slide. I went on a tangent. This is the software descriptor extension. This is the draft that is actually here in Sacm. This is an extension to Rolly that we've been working on here that covers the Rolly capabilities of carrying around software descriptor information. This is information like the ISO SWID format, although it is not confined to that format by any stretch of the imagination. So this draft was, since IETF 99 Prague, adopted as a working group draft. So its official title is now Draft IETF Sacm Rolly Software Descriptor 00. We've continued to work on it, made some editorial changes to the text, but most importantly, we have updated the extension to a new format. This is a standardized format that we're going to be using for all Rolly extensions. So the primary change in this version is we've changed the organization of the document. So we really appreciate it if people can come and look at the new version of the document that was posted and just let us know if you think the organization and the flow of the document is something that makes sense to you. And as always, we're welcoming editorial stuff as well.
Can I ask how many people have read this document, the October version?
The most recent version?
This is from October?
1. Okay. 2.
I've actually read it. Okay.
Okay.
We'll get 4. If we could get some more people to read over it, it's actually very short. If it's about, what, 20 pages almost?
No, it's way less. It's like, in terms of actual content, it's like 4 or 5 pages or something like that.
Yeah, if we could get some additional reviews, this is really a quick and light one. That would be spectacular.
Right. The review would primarily be organizational. Dave?
Dave Woltermeyer, just to add to that, I think at this point we feel like this draft we've done most of what we can do with this draft. So we feel like it's a pretty solid draft at this point. So if that helps folks as far as reviewing the document, we really don't feel like we can do much more until we start to get more feedback on the document going forward. So this is just some encouragement for more feedback.
I read it, and I found a few nits primarily. So
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's it's a short read. Take a look.
Thanks. Okay, next slide. Another brief cross-working group update. The CSERT extension was also updated to the new format. So again, if you're making comments on the organization of software descriptor, that's super useful because that is the organization format for all these different extensions. We're looking for more review of this document as well. As always, just review everything. It's really helpful for the authors of those. Okay, next slide. Is that it? No, way forward. Right. So just as we were talking about a second ago, we really feel like software descriptor is currently in a pretty good place. It's a technical description of this new information type. It covers all the necessary registrations as far as we think it does. And it really kind of describes the extension. So at this point, we as the authors feel that this document has reached kind of a technical maturity, and we're just looking for review so that we can really kind of start to move it forward and find out if there's anything we need to change. So, Chris, you said you found some nits. That would be great if we could, get those, start making some changes, get an 01 version out, and continue to work on that. Would be extremely helpful. So I think that more or less covers my presentation topics as far as Rolly goes. It's a brief update here. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to field them. I think I have a lot of extra time for this segment. But if there's no questions, then that is all I have to give. Okay, thank you.
So Kathleen Moriarty walking in at the end of that, not having full context. This is for Rolly that's already beyond IESG review, or something else.
I gave a brief overview on that Rolly in the beginning.
Oh, this is different.
This in particular is for an extension that we're working on here in Sacm. This is
Okay. All right. Thank you. Because
Yep.
I was going to ask, well, what are you setting for review times? But it doesn't matter.
Yep. It was just adopted as a working group draft, so we're just looking for more review on it. Yep, no problem.
What was next? Frank, data and control plane security baselines.
Great. Hello, everyone. It's Frank Xia. Good morning. Okay. Yes, it's mine. Yes. Okay. And I'd like to introduce some of our starting work about the network security status or posture collection of the some network infrastructure devices, such as the router switch. I think this is maybe a natural extension of current Sacm work in the future. So we propose here and hope to get your suggestions. Okay. Okay. Let's start from the motivation. Okay. So we all know that in last IETF meeting, we have some discussion about the panic, the posture assessment through network information collection. And from our understanding, we can use our current Sacm architecture and the protocol to do more things to help the network operators to monitor and evaluate their network infrastructure security. So that's our idea, and we try to do something here. So here we the network infrastructure devices, we mean that the router, switch, firewalls, those devices. Okay, and the goal is to collect the security posture to do the assessment of the devices asset, software, vulnerability, and configuration. It's totally the same as the previous Sacm work for the enterprise devices, right? Okay, and I think it's also aligned to the Sacm recharge work. It's covered the collection and the messaging part of the new work. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So the overview of this draft is firstly, we want to mention why we need this kind of mechanism for the network infrastructure devices, because we all know that currently for the security circumstances of the network devices is serious, because there are a lot of unsafe access channel exist here. So how can we protect them, such as the Telnet, SMP, the previous version? And we all know that TCP/IP is a very open network protocol, and it brings us advantage, but also it opens a lot of attack interface for network devices. So can we protect our devices more? Okay, and then the network and the devices becoming more and more complex. So that's another problem that will make our security become more harder. And another key point is that the capability, the traffic processing capability mismatch between the data plane and the control plane of the device. So based on these reasons, we think that if we have some kind of automated monitoring and posture assessment and the mechanism for the network devices, that will be good. So the objective of the mechanism is to identify the threats and the vulnerabilities of device, such as unnecessary services and insecure configuration and abnormal status. And then we can enforce security hardening measurements on them. We can update our software patching and modify the security configuration and do a lot of things to harden the network security device. device security. Sorry. And next slides.
Hi there, Frank.
Oh, sorry.
Just a quick question. Actually, maybe not a quick question.
Okay.
In the panic mailing list, there was a request. What is the boundaries of what's panic is doing and what's going on with the Yang push? That was one of the last messages. Is there anything you can talk about with Yang push? The other thing this plays into to sort of stir Hank and Nancy a bit is the idea of attestation. And is there any talk about how panic interrelates with any attestation as well as device push? So I'm just trying to get the idea of where that's going, because the panic list seems to have gone fairly quiet recently.
Yes, I think, yeah, that's a good comment. And I think that's all the question we need to consider later together, because right now we just from our vendor's perspective that we think that we need those information to be collected and evaluated to access our network device security. But then how to do it? I think Yang push is a very good mechanism we can base on. That's one of that's one point. And secondly, I think I also agree that with you that attestation is very important for the whole work, because if we just provide the information, but we cannot guarantee that the information is integrated and it has a trust base, so that will influence the operators' trust that this information is useful. So yes, we need to consider all this problem as a whole. And yeah, yes. Okay, next slide. Okay. From our Huawei's perspective, we divided the network devices security posture or security baseline into this architecture. Firstly, we have 3 layers. The first one is application layer, which means that we need to assure the security of the network devices application layer, such as those web application security and how encrypt the data, sensitive data in devices, and how to do the privacy protection, and a lot of things in application layer. And another important part is the network layer. Okay, for this layer, just consider how to protect the network resources and their service. So we can use the current Sacm mechanism to collect them, and then based on the collected result, we can hardening the configuration and the status connection. So for this layer, we have three plane: control plane, data plane, and the management plane. They all cover their respective features, security-related features. I will introduce later. Okay, and the last one is the infrastructure layer. This is more about the device itself and the operating system running on the network devices. So we also care about their security. So these are the from our understanding that we should care about. We should study on this work. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So yes, I think this page just can answer some of the actual questions. We want this work based on some existing technologies, such as we use that we think that the Yang push and notification sub-pub mechanism is very useful for here to help us to do a flexible and intelligent way to collect those information. And then we also want to, because this work is finally used by the Sacm architecture. So how to mapping or how to translate the network posture information to the Sacm information model. So we need a block. I think Hank has already a good start on this direction. He already has a draft on it. So we can work together with his draft to deal with this problem. So, and another very important thing that we need to do is that because these are all related to the network devices, information model with security information by using the Yang model. So we need to identify the existing YARN model in, in IETF, there are a lot of YARN model for different part of network devices. So we do not need to reinvent the same thing. So we search the YARN category log and all the IETF YARN drafts to try to avoid do the same thing as them. So that we will introduce our finding in next page. Okay, please. So in general, there are good news and bad news for us, not for Sacm. Okay. Firstly, for the data plane YARN model, data plane security posture YARN model, and we searched all the existing YARN model any place. We don't find the existing content about this part. So right now in our draft, we list some of points that we think is important for the networking devices security. They are the L2 protection. So how to do the MAC limit, how to suppress the BOM traffic, and the app protection. Okay, it's related to app spoofing and app flooding, and URPF and DHCP snooping, and how to protect the device's control plane, how to do something in data plane to avoid the flooding or the DDoS attack to the device, and how to detect the fragment or malformed packets, and to just discard them. And that's just from a very initial idea from our perspective. I think that we think that is not complete, and maybe it's some it's just very beginning stage. So we hope that later we can refine them and we can simplify or add more useful information here. Next page. Okay, and about the data plane, we also write a control plane. Sorry, control plane security post baseline YARN model. But for this draft, when we after our search of the current existing draft, we find that most of them are already covered in the in several drafts. For example, the BGP is already covered. OSPF, ECS, MPLS, keychain, GTSM, all these mechanisms are covered in existing draft. But we also identify some missing content in those drafts. So I think for us, our strategy is that we can contribute to those existing drafts. So that's our current idea. Okay. So the next steps, we want to we think we can do further work to simplify the current data model, because a lot of details may be not needed for it. And also we should consider how to combine well with the current YARN push and the notification mechanism, and how to work together with work in the scope of Sacm. So based on the Sacm information model. And maybe we think that it's incomplete information. So there are other essential part of the security baseline can be added later. So we will welcome any more comments and more courses to work together on this direction. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Any questions? How many have read the draft? About 6, 7, 8.
Hi, Stephen Banghart. Just a quick question. So I have read the draft. I was just looking over it again. And I just wanted to ask a quick clarifying question about maybe if you could state what exactly are the goals of this draft? Are you attempting to just register new Yang modules, or is this trying to do something more than that? I mean, what's the goal of this?
Yes, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I think our ultimate goal is that we want to, based on the current Sacm architecture, to collect the security posture of the network devices. Because from our understanding, current Sacm work only covers how to collect the enterprise devices security posture, but how to extend the existing work to the network scope. So that's what we want to do. Because this is draft 0.0 version of draft, or we can only say that currently we provide some raw materials here. And we think that this information is useful to help us to assessment the network status of the security status of network device. But how to use them and how to collect them, how to evaluate them, how to do the smart filtering of them, I think there are a lot of work need to do. And they all in the scope of Sacm, right? So yeah,
Okay.
that's what we need to do. Yeah.
Okay. Because so in the document, there's all these defined modules, right? So is it fair then to say that what you're doing in these drafts is defining Yang modules that line up with the Sacm information model? Is that what you're trying to do?
I think so. Yes. Yes. Because if you see my last page, next steps, I need to do the alignment to the current Sacm information model. So current information model provide a lot of good structure of the endpoint attributes, endpoint statement. I think that's a very good baseline that we can base on it,
right,
and to define our model.
Right.
So we will reference it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I just think Kathleen's comment that was put up on the slide is a good one, is that there's a lot of Yang modules out there that cover everything, right?
Yes,
So you just want to make sure that whatever you're doing is not just doing that again, and that maybe Hank.
Yeah, we will avoid it. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, this is Hank. Good morning. What do I want to say? Damn it. Yeah, I think the term baseline is just a little bit confusing at this point here. So this is about security posture. This is the intent I get from this presentation. That is not about baseline security. It is about acquiring specific security posture from network devices that you know.
Yeah, right.
And that you want to input into the Sacm security automation domain.
Yes.
And the Yang modules are supposed to be the interface for this additional information that is probably or maybe not yet covered in the information model of Sacm today, or unfortunately, as you put it, this is the bad side, so to speak, is already covered in other Yang modules. You have to strip it out.
Yes,
so next steps is making basically order in the draft and find out what is redundant and prune that, and find out what is distinctly new, and if that is missing from the information model, try match it there.
Yes.
So this is what I get, and yeah, this is my question. This
Yeah,
is
your
intent.
understanding is totally correct.
Okay.
You are the term expert. Yes, thank you for correcting me. Maybe my English error, baseline or posture. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So I have Chris Anasio, chair hat off. So looking at the draft, you had a lot of Yang data elements listed in your draft. And it was more type information than it necessarily included what I would consider kind of a baseline. So you didn't give guidance on any of those elements to be set in a range, turned off, turned on, etc. If we move kind of the Yang type definition materials out into NetConf where it belongs, do you anticipate kind of building guidance about what those values should be?
No, I'm not sure right now, because I think the most important work or goal for this work is that we just want to collect or want to specify what information we need, but it's very hard to define, what value we anticipate something. Maybe some part of them we can provide. So if it's open or if it's turn on or if it's turn off, but some counter or something cannot be give our only value to evaluate, right? So I think it's half of your requirement. We can do some very some very concrete value we can give, but some of them we cannot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Jessica from Huawei. I'm going to present the security baseline for network device management plane. This is a part of the previous presented security baseline work. As we all know that securing network devices is a challenging and crucial work for both the organizations and the operators. So our purpose of this work is to define security baseline for network devices, and we want this work can be further used in the security posture assessment. And this document focuses on the managed plane security. And we provide a data model, and we want to incorporate the best practices from the industry, and to provide a minimal set of security features for network device management plane. And as we all know that there are already many work about young models in IETF. So we will reduce the existing young models and provide additional models and groupings for the missing parts. Next slide, please. So this picture is the overall structure of this document. It can be divided into 4 parts: user authentication and authorization, system management security, log security, and file security. And at the bottom of this page, we list the existing young models. There are 2 RFCs that has already published about the security about system management, and we can reduce the security parts of these young models. And there are also several drafts that working on TLS, SSH, netconf, syslog, and ACL young model. Next slide, please. So, this is this is a brief young tree about the user authentication and authorization part. We divided it into 3 sections. The first section is about user interface security. We listed the 3 ways that are commonly used when we try to log into the network device. We can log into a network device by console, VTY, and the web. For each type of the user interface, the authentication mode and the privilege level of the user should be defined to make access control and also authentication. And for VTY user interface and the web user face, we reused the existing groupings that are already defined, such as ACL rules and the SSH groupings and the TLS groupings. But the already defined SSH and TLS groupings mainly focus on their specific configurations. There are some configurations are lost, such as the source port configuration. So we added the missing part of the configuration and monitoring. The second section is about authentication and authorization. For users, we mainly focus on the configuration of readers and Texas servers and the CQ communication between client and the server. And the last part is the user profile. It mainly about the user credential configuration and the password complexity check. Next slide, please. As for the system management security, because there are already defined young models, we just reduced the security parts of these young models. Next slide, please. For log security and the file security, we mainly focus on two aspects: the security on the log and the files that is stored locally, and another is the remote transportation. So, so for log security, we mainly focus on the local log access control, and the remote security. We focus on the syslog security. This part has been already defined, so we just reuse it. As for file security, we focus on the security check for different types of files, such as patches, packages, and the configuration files. And for the remote transfer, we focus about the FTP, SFTP, SCP, and the FTPS. So next slide, please. So this is a whole picture of this document, and our next step is to try to refine the data model, and we want to incorporate the best practices from the industry. So please review and give us comment about this. And we will also try to combine this work with Sacm framework and to meet our goals to access the network security posture. And we also try to combine with the existing young push and sub-pub mechanisms. So that's our work, and please review and comment. Thank you.
Hi, this is Hank again. So the first thing that after reading most of it, I would say that that both work groups, Sacm and I2NSF, start to develop Yang modules to report about the state of endpoints and security functions. And this seems to become kind of really redundant, because this draft here, for example, has a lot of overlap with the new data model for monitoring in I2NSF. And I think that's not going to be a problem for long, because this afternoon everyone will meet in one room and try to work on the Yang modules from I2NSF. And yeah, I think probably you will be there. I don't know. If not, I can give you the point in time, and we can see if this works out. And yeah, we have to make sure, maybe just create one reporting Yang module that can be used for subscribe notifications and use them in both work groups, probably. Because seriously, some of the stuff looks identical. So that would be a good way to move forward, I think, at least at that domain. And Eric.
I second that. One other thing that's really good to see is that a couple IETFs ago, we talked about the use of Yang push, and I'm glad that Sacm is listening and adding it. We're trying to take Yang push towards working group last call, and a lot of the impetus for this is going to be the users of this, whether it be Sacm, I2NSF, DTN. And so if there's anybody who would like to see and use the Yang push and get it to the last call, it'd be great if you could come to NetConf tomorrow to be able to say, bring it to last call, so that we have users saying that they're ready to go. So come and hum when you want it.
So Dave Waltermeyer, so I'm definitely not an expert in Yang models or what's out there, but in reading this, the one thing that I think is missing that may be useful to inform some of this conflict resolution discussion is around, it seems like this is motivated by the fact that there's some missing stuff in what's currently out there as far as Yang models, and so I would like to see more analysis around what's missing, and why there's a need for more work in this space. I think that would actually be helpful to inform and maybe engage other folks within the Yang community on what's needed to really fill the gaps that you're trying to address. So maybe it would be worth writing a draft that instead of focusing on new work, would focus on, you know, where is there missing pieces in existing work that needs to be, you know, filled in. Just an idea.
And thank you. I have a brief analysis in my draft, and thank you for your advice. I will add more analysis about our work to make it more clear.
Okay, just to add some clarification to David's question. I think this management plan draft is 01 version. Actually, we noticed this problem that we currently what we are doing is already exist in some young related drafts. So we do the brief analysis, just like Chu said, and then I think we should do more of this work to give an overall picture of what is missing in current existing young model. That's part of the work, but that's not all of the work. I think for the goal of our work, we want to do this work in Sacm because that we think that Sacm is a very good place to do the end-to-end network security posture collection and assessment. So that doesn't mean only the content we need, so but also covers the mechanism, how to process this message, this information. So how to collect them, how to evaluate them. I think there are still a lot of work related to these network devices, how to manage them. So it's not. I mean that you're right. We need to do the overall analysis, but we also want to give a complete solution for the network device security posture. Yeah, that's.
Okay, thank you.
Hank, you're up. Chairs say this is what happens when you don't submit slides.
Thank you for slides. This is very appreciated. Next slide, please.
This is the entire deck.
Oh. Oh.
You do have your chance.
I'm doing this here. So hi, I'm Hank. Adam Montville and I were the champions of the Sacm, a combined NetConf Sacm hackathon project of the IETF 100. And last time, for a quick recap, we for the first time combined the Yang push technology with the XMPP grid broker draft technology that is incubated in Mile. And so what we did there was a static combination. We had two participants or vendors. It was Huawei from the People's Republic of China and Cisco from the United States of America. And both provided hardware in their own locations. So we were basically live connecting across the globe and aggregating that information via subscribed notifications there in Prague, and fed that into the Sacm domain for the post-processment that is defined by the, at the moment, expired architecture. This time, we address the new items that are defined for the rechartered, for the new charter of Sacm, which are, if I remember correctly, messaging, evaluation, and collection. And so most of it is about collection orchestration, which is the messaging. All of them include the term orchestration, which is like a meta term beyond all of that. So this time we are focusing on discovery of target endpoints. This is done assuming that we are addressing network equipment primarily, and that network equipment is supposed to have Yang interfaces active, and those are then again Yang push capable. So the way forward was to have a root network device and then crawl through the network by discovering the capability that a network device can find its own neighbors in the layer 2 broadcast domain via LLDP and CDP or CDP, and has a corresponding module, Yang module capability. We then query that, so subscribe to that. I have new other slides. Now I'm surprised. Okay. I'm ignoring that. Yeah, therefore we can find new management plane interfaces for other devices. Again, do Hello capability layering and subscribe to appropriate modules, and therefore discover the complete technology if it is enabled with CDP or LLDP. That is one step. The other step is that we orchestrate the collection. So we provided or created our first Sacm repository, this hackathon, which is the imperative guidance repository. In this database, basically a key value store, we find device type, device model, and potentially even the IP address, which is was the easiest thing to do at first. And then find out by a manually configured value which capabilities are interesting or default to subscribe to in this device type, device model combination. So probably you're interested in something else when it is just a pure layer 2 switch than if it's a full-fledged carrier grade router. So again, to that, this is guidance, what to collect from a specific type model aggregate. And yeah, these are our two basic accomplishments, I think. We focused on orchestration and not on static configuration, and we created our first repository for our guidance, in this case, imperative guidance. And yeah, I think we won a tailored prize that is targeted at cross-work group collaboration. And considering that we now create that there is now a third binding to Yang that is not netconf and not restconf, we will, I hope that we can even show feasibility for the COMI binding of Yang push even next year in London, I think. Yeah, so this is my short report on the hackathon, Sacm combined hackathon project. And the first question.
Roman Danilou, CMU. It's less about the hackathon. Perhaps I'm not tracking the documents enough. The term imperative guidance has been used a bunch of times. How is that different than normal guidance?
Read the terminology, please. And now I will answer the question. Imperative guidance is telling you what to do. It is, for example, it can be a subset is typically configuration on the management plane. It is how a device is supposed to behave. It is making a device change its behavior. In this case, it makes the collector do specific collection operations on specific device types and models. The contrast to that is declarative guidance. This is guidance that tells you how it should be. So if the temperature, for example, has a threshold of 50 and it's always at 60, you're violating declarative guidance. So therefore, it could be that, for example, the term policy, which is like an overloaded and burned term here in the IETF, is declarative guidance. Also, you can define declarative guidance via description logic languages. And if John Stressner would now be here, he would be basically at the mic and tell us how this is done. But there are existing solutions to do very sophisticated ways of defining imperative guidance, declarative guidance, and intent. It is a third category, but here stops my expert knowledge. John Cessna would be the one to ask at this point.
Hey, Dave Waltermeyer, you mentioned that there are existing solutions in this space. What draft should we read that relate to this work?
Could you please specify in this space?
You said there was existing work around imperative and declarative guidance. Which draft should we read?
I'm actually not sure how much of that went into drafts already. Again, I would contact John Stressner offline. I tried to send him to you and Stephen yesterday. I'm not sure if that was successful because he was writing slides all the time. But he is working on actual solutions in all three areas. So I guess we should go and ask him.
I mean, this is Sacm though, so it would be useful if we could actually get some of this work, submitted as drafts here.
Maybe there is a draft called something capabilities in the I2NSF. The ECA, the Event Condition Action Model, is described in detail there, and it includes some of the evaluations, so the intent and declarative guidance language. So I would read that draft first in order to get a little bit familiar with the ECA model that is used to aggregate hierarchies of event refinement or notification refinement in I2NSF.
Yeah. So could you post something to the list, maybe pointing out these drafts?
Yeah.
I think it would also be useful for those of us that are not I2NSF experts to understand how that more closely relates to the work here in Sacm. It would be maybe a couple of ideas on how that could happen would be posting a quick summary to the list, talking about how the work relates, or writing a draft talking about how.
Okay. Yeah, I will not have the time to write a draft for that. But I recommend everybody to join us at Butterworth at 5 p.m. today. Although it is a small room, and maybe I should not invite anyone. Eric is shaking his head. It's a small room. We are already a lot of people there. But I would again start reading existing drafts on I2NSF, which is always helpful.
So I've done that though. I mean, there's just a ton of words there, and it's not clear how that work directly relates to the charter here in Sacm. So I guess what I'm looking for is some help to better understand that.
Maybe from the top of my head, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I heard the target or goal in Sacm, in the Sacm working group, to create an evaluation language or to adapt an existing one. Is that correct?
I think that's what we intend to do, yes.
Exactly. And at exactly that point, the ECA model comes into play. And I would focus on specifically that sections in the capability draft of I2NSF.
Okay, and you're going to send an email pointing
I
to
will
the draft.
just type an email into my keyboard.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Alex Clem. Just one addition actually on top of that. There's actually a discussion in MRG currently, actually is also similar to that, basically regarding how intent, how policy, how service models, how all of those things actually relate. There was actually a big discussion on Monday regarding this, and there's also actually a draft on this. Perhaps the imperative and declarative, the guidance are some things to also add to the discussion. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that there is this effort also going on, and actually when you go to the NMRG page, you'll see, you will find the draft.
Yeah. The problem here is, I think, to build a general solution without a very specific problem domain failed twice here in the IETF. And now nobody is doing that anymore. So every working group now starts its own version of it. And now people find out, hey, this somehow always looks similar, which is a conundrum. So basically building now this and finding out that our problems are similar helps us to create an actual lightweight combined solution that helps every working group, maybe an extensible one that is enabling every working group to achieve its detail goals. And so, yeah, I think that's very, very good advice. Maybe you also could shoot a pointer of that into the list.
Sure, I'll send a message on this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so that's it. Or maybe I should refer to these slides. I'm not sure. Okay, thank you.
So
I seriously didn't have the slide at the time.
Jared, you want to do terminology bash?
Thank you.
You can go find another mic because I'm sure you're going to get up.
So since Prague, I don't think we have done any work in the terminology area for Sacm, and maybe due to a couple of reasons. One is we talked about the working group is recharting, and there are new drafts coming out, and we're spending more time in hackathon and hashing out some ideas and what works and whatnot. So given that there are interactions and the interests and working relationship with I2NSF group and the Sacm, and they also have overlapping concept, which is kind of a similar. I just like to sort of get some guidance or suggestions as how we should move forward in terms of Sacm technology, whether we should combine or to me at the moment I think it still makes sense to have a separate terminology draft for Sacm, and we can revisit that decision later if we want to move it, merge it with some other drafts. That doesn't preclude that, and I think we should align things with I2NSF working group when appropriate, and we should avoid to have conflicts there. So, I just want to see whether people have suggestions for us moving forward.
Hank, did you?
Hi, this is Hank. Yes. And also, I think that we cannot merge the terminology draft at the moment with any draft because there is none. All of the relevant drafts are under, expired, I think. The architectures are expired and the information model is expired. So
Right.
I'm happy that the
hasn't-
terminology is not expired.
No.
This is due to, we are working on refactoring a version of the architecture, but it is simply accumulating too much work on my side. I cannot do it all. So the hackathon was more important to find out and to filter feasibility from, okay, this makes absolutely no sense. And that really helped for the last two iterations now. And it will have a very good effect on, I think, both the expired drafts and the terminology. That's the only thing I can add here. Otherwise, I would fully agree with Jared's report.
Hi, this is Nancy. So I just want to say the terminology draft is important. I don't have any strong opinions about convergence, merging, but just as an FYI, as I am working with now a new co-author on the XMPP grid, which admittedly is in mile, we found it helpful to reference the terminology that is currently in Sacm to help clarify the intent of what we're trying to do.
Okay, so at the highest levels, what I'm hearing is this document is important and it's not moving forward. And Hank is focused on the hackathon, which is great. Is there anybody who would like to be editor?
So, okay, shamefully, I'm an author in that too. So I guess I need to go back and see what the open issues are because I didn't think there were that many things that we needed to address. So I should look and pull my weight.
I think we also have a volunteer for help.
Yay. Thank you.
With no arm twisting.
And
even.
for the record, Karen was pointing at Adam, who looked very, very happy. Yes, it is moving forward. It is just not moving as fast as it did due to the reasons Jared just said. It is not intended to stall, or it is basically effectively not finished yet. And I think that the alignment work in the data models that we are now aiming at will also consolidate the terminology more. Also, it helps that John Chestnut and I are author of the I2NSF terminology draft, I think.
I think the draft is supposed to be an evolving sort of draft as we go. And even within different drafts within the Sacm, including the the new charter, it references terms like imperative guidance and things like that, that is actually defined there. So that sort of says that, we need a reference.
Yeah, also, and this is just an observation. I absolutely do not, and I literally want to point this out. This is not trying to state an opinion, just a question maybe, or an observation. I think I don't know the actual term, Kathleen might help me out here. There are non-essential drafts, like, I don't know, like a problem statement or so, that it should never be pushed to ISG because I forgot the term. Sorry. They're supportive drafts, support drafts, and those should never be pushed to the ISG because it is a gateway function and they're overloaded by that and just would see the context and combine drafts. And I try to understand and read the definition of support draft, and it seems the terminology is not covered by it.
So Kathleen Moriarty, one clarifying point. The word never was not part of the statement. It is up to the working group to justify why something might need to be published. And there are split views amongst the IESG, and of course with a turnover in March, I don't know where that split will move to, right? It's been on a trend of disliking support documents more and more. It could swing back, or it could swing even further to disliking them. It's just encouraged to have them be wiki-based. So terminology, we don't see these too often coming through. It's fine. If the working group wants to publish it, I will happily support that and move that through, but it's up to the working group. We often see them combined with other documents.
So I have sort of two questions about that. One, I know that the concept of the wiki-based document is something I've struggled with, because I feel like we put it up on the wiki and then nobody ever looks at it. Nobody knows to find it.
And it can
So
die.
I don't know which wiki documents have actually proven to be effective, for starters.
Yeah, I would rather a dead draft than a wiki document, frankly.
Right.
Right. So you might use your Sacm wiki to point to expired drafts. Or if you want to, if you think it's important to have them published so that the broader community using these specifications coming forward really need them, then you just make that clear, and myself or a subsequent AD will fight for that, right?
So-
because we are here to support the working group.
All right. So the second question then, well, another question that popped into my head, actually it popped into the ears behind me, the two of them. Can you reference a wiki or expired drafts in a published RFC?
No, of course not.
Okay.
You can, expired drafts, yes.
Expired drafts you can, but a wiki you cannot.
Right. And it would be an informative reference, but it's because it is stable,
Okay.
right? We archive forever. So
That's true. Wikis are not stable. So what I had asked at the last meeting was that we at least keep, at the last meeting, there was a conversation around, the terms that were in the terminology document were not, those terms have evolved somewhat in the conversations with the I2NSF and this group that were working on terminology, but that wasn't getting rolled back into the draft. And
yeah,
so,
that's fine.
I would prefer to see, if it's a living document that we're not quite ready to publish, I'd prefer to see it have regular updates.
Yeah,
It's
and-
not to you, it's to Hank or to whoever ends up editing.
Yeah, and when you feel it's the right time to publish that, I would advise something like a terminology document is coupled with a core working group document so that the IESG is reviewing them on the same telechat. So at least there's some coupling. And
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Thank you.
yeah, I have to read a lot of these things. So
Yeah. I mean, I like terminology documents if they don't become like a pit of despair in the development process.
right, not the bike shed exercise. All right, thank you.
Did this answer your questions?
Yep. Thank you.
Just one last comment. There's a strong opinion about the terminology draft in I2NSF. So everybody's arguing about this, I think. I2NSF is using it differently, I think. They want to have it stable before moving other drafts forward. And I think we are doing a interfacing with between solutions and between developing solutions. So it will at least become stable, I hope, when we have a final working class group call for the architecture, because then we're stuck with that. And then most of it will not change anymore. And then if there are actually additional terms defined, those can go into the specific, very specific solution drafts, apparently, because they are not in the general terminology. So I think if we're coupling it, my first gut feeling would be coupling it with the architecture draft.
Right. So this goes back to my pit of despair comment. I think sometimes done is better than perfect. And so I think we need to not, I mean, you can change things. You can publish updated RFCs, but if we wait forever.
What is the problem with coupling it with the architecture? Waiting forever, what does it mean?
Well, I tell you what,
Get them
in
to
my
say-
opinion, the problem with coupling it with the architecture is I've been hearing rumors of an updated architecture document for a while, and it hasn't actually appeared. So there is no architecture document to couple it with right now.
Well, I will not reiterate the history of how we dealt with the architecture. It was not the best way to do it. So on the other hand, I think it is not a pit of despair. It is a shining beacon of hope. So I'm not worried about it at all.
Okay, well,
Okay.
in all honesty, I'm not worried about it. I think we need to get an 80% solution out the door. And
yeah, but the solution is
Pit of
the
despair.
architecture in this case. The terminology is to make sure everybody is consistent. The architecture is the pit of despair. Sorry to say
Yeah.
that. Not the terminology.
and we're getting ready to talk about way forward, and we can talk about architecture at that point.
Okay. Wow, this is tall. Nancy again. Yeah, I mean, as the author of the architecture draft, Pit of Despair, true. I actually stopped working on it because I I got feedback that questioning whether it was useful or agreement. So if there's belief that there's use to it, I'm more than happy to bring it back and move it forward.
Right, and actually, as a working group, we decided to park it.
Right. Oh, sorry. Okay. I
So-
should have said it softer. Sorry. The group
Well-
decided to park it, which is why I stopped working on it.
Well, I just started this whole conversation by using the term pit of despair that I have immediately regretted, but great, that's fabulous.
So let me rephrase it. I'm more than willing to continue to move the architecture forward if the group believes we can now unpark it. How's that?
Yeah, let's get to that. So our next portion of the agenda was to talk about our way forward. Right, so the way forward, in my mind at least, was to go quickly over our current drafts, and then to talk about the charter, and then to talk about our definition of milestones. So was that your way forward? Excellent. It is.
Here are the current active drafts in the working group. None of these, and someone can tell me I'm wrong, are in last call. So where do we? So Hank, you have COSWID. You have the pen. All right, Dave's already getting up.
Hi, this is Hank. Yeah, I made a big update to the COSWID draft that is visible at the editorial version. Unfortunately, time moves on when you work, so I was 20 seconds late at the submission deadline. And then 2 days later, I got a review comment from my co-authors, one of my co-authors, including 112 comments and 50 changes. And then I thought maybe I just postpone submitting it a little bit and then incorporate those first. So luckily I did not commit because the other next commit would be another bigger change. Also, I need to work with Dave on this, but I think we have a work session directly after this. So yeah, it is making very good progress, and it is a viable solution for Suite also.
So do you need any additional help, or do you guys have it under control? It's just a matter of time and fingers to keyboards?
It was more a problem of getting in sync again. We had a lot of things on the plate in the last iteration, Dave and I, and we synced twice. So I think we can be better than this time, and this is not the problem. The content is actually quite clear and quite understandable and going forward. And it is about just doing it now. I mean, if you compare the edited version with the submitted version on the GitHub, you see the significant additions that are already in.
I haven't looked at the GitHub version, but okay.
Can you, you said you pushed an update and missed the deadline. Can you just go ahead and push it, publish it? Oh, yeah, never mind.
Dave Waltermeyer. So yeah, I'd like to get this COSWID document done. I mean, as far as milestones, it would be great if we could aim for a working group last call on the draft by the next meeting. Because we've been working on it for a while, and I think we're getting to the point where we might be addressing new use cases around COSWID, but we can do those in additional drafts. I think it's important to pull the trigger and get the core done as soon as possible.
So does the update still include using CoApp? And the one that's on there has CoApp as transport? No, that's all gone?
Our document definition has nothing to do with transfer and transport, and I think you're confusing things here at the moment. The term CoApp is not mentioned once. Maybe you're looking at the wrong draft?
Maybe, but I'll check again.
But document.
Yeah, no worries.
Hank, I know perhaps I was looking down or something, but you have changes to make. Did you give us a time frame for when those changes would be done? I'm really sorry. I was listening, I promise.
Okay, with a little bit of grease and good hard work, we can do this in the next 2 hours after lunch.
Oh.
And then submit it.
Oh, perfect.
I think it's possible. I have one. Dang it, it's Mike. I have one comment to make. We use a lot of attributes that align with the ISO standard, and some of those are not as well defined or useful, and at some points make sense as it should be making. So my current thinking is that we will diverge from some of these definitions and make them better and actually more useful. So, but this stuff that I have to align with Dave, who was also involved in creating the ISO standard. And we have to prune everything that's actually we can prune, or maybe we can have to live with some definitions that are just there because they are commonly accepted. My biggest problem was that the current available schema definition from ISO makes absolutely no sense. It is broken in so many ways that you can define SWITs that are basically no SWITs. And so we want a concise SWIT definition that doesn't have that problem. And I think also there are some implicit definitions somewhere in the text or somewhere in the XSD that are never explicitly defined. And I think Dave is our best expert on site in this domain. I think I really have to sync with him in order to make a decision. And so, yeah, I think we can do this today, probably. I would give a 79% guarantee.
Okay, so how about we say end of the week?
After today, I cannot work on this anymore. My time schedule is so full that I have redelegated every lunch to meetings.
I'm immediately sorry I suggested it.
This may be going out to the folks on Jabber. Does anybody have updates on ECP?
Hey, I can talk about that a little bit. So ECP, I think, is ready to be updated. I think the authors are debating what kind of diagram they want to include in it, if I understand correctly. So it's something that can happen on list, which is why there wasn't a presentation about it today. If that makes any sense.
So Danny has posted to the Jabber in response. He says, Jess is still making updates to up-level the draft and make updates based on changes to SWIMA. I think the plan is that we will take some open issues and bring them to the list. We are updating the diagrams too.
Thanks, Danny.
Okay, for the SWIMA document, it went to working group last call. The working group last call has concluded. I believe, according to the authors, that all of the comments received have been addressed. And so our plan is to send it to the IESG. That's all.
Raleigh software descriptors. Although I think you kind of already touched on this.
So I don't really have anything extra beyond basically what I said at the end of the thing. Just waiting for review for people to look at it. I'll probably go over it with a microscope and see if I can get some editorial changes to make before the next IETF post at 01. So if things continue as they do now, I'll probably ask for a last call at London.
At or before?
I'm thinking at. But yeah, Dave probably has an idea. So given that we feel like we've done pretty much all that we can, this is Dave Waltermeyer. Given that we've done as much as we feel like we can do on this draft, unless we get comments from the group, we don't expect to make any additional changes really, except for maybe a few minor editorial things. So would it be worthwhile to do a working group last call on this document as a way to stimulate more review?
Yeah, if the authors don't believe there's any substantive changes coming, if they don't have a list of issues they're trying to address, then that would indicate the document is mature from your standpoint, and what we need are more comments.
I do not believe that there's any technical changes that'll come from the authors, barring any review. So,
okay, so you said no technical changes. Are there any editorial changes you want to do before we do a working group last call?
none that I want to do right now. No. I have looked at the document. I have no editorial changes.
Okay. So apparently there are some nits that
Okay.
that Chris plans to send to you. If you could, so we'll do the NITs. If you can update the document, then we can issue a working group last call. For folks in the room, how many people have been reading this document or following this document?
Any version of it.
Any version of it? Okay. I did overhear I overheard a comment last night at the social, which was no comments on the mailing list is worse than negative comments. And so I would strongly encourage people to comment on the working group last calls.
You can be mean to me. I can take it. I just want review.
All right. So we have a way forward with that one. Excellent.
Terminology is the other one that's still a working group draft, and I think we've already beaten that horse, so I'm not going to go there again. And I think that brings us up to, I'm not going to go over expired drafts because I'd rather talk about where we stand with charter. So we submitted the recharter. I know a lot of people participated in working on the language that's in the charter. I don't actually know how to frame the conversation.
So all of the so the charter has gone to the IESG. We've gotten some comments back. Some of them have to do with we aren't quite clear enough in some of our language. So Chris and I worked for a while yesterday on editing a little bits of it. This is not making any substantive technical changes to it. It's just trying to be a little bit clearer in the language. The one thing that we did get feedback on was that they would like to see some milestones. The milestones are not actually part of the charter. They're actually separate, but we do need a concise set of milestones. So I guess what I would like to see is a discussion about what our milestones are, because the list of things that we will work on, well, primarily the feedback was, boy, that list of things that you're going to work on is pretty abstract, and wouldn't it be nice if it were more concrete? So there's a couple different ways we could do this. One way we could do it would be to go through that list of work items we'll include from the charter and discuss which specific documents might map to those that people are planning on or are currently in the process. I'm open to suggestions on how to do this without getting into a lengthy architecture, not Sacm architecture, but a lengthy conversation around it. So, thoughts? Okay, can you just bring up the draft then? Yeah. That's it right there. I just want to. Yeah, I just want to go down to down. So specific work items may include the following. That sounds vaguely like milestones. We need actual milestones to map to this.
While you were doing that, one thought crossed my mind based on what you had. This is Dave Waltermeyer. Based on what you had up on the screen, I think it would be useful maybe to send CoSWID and Rolly software descriptor at the same time, because the software descriptor references CoSWID, and since they're related in concept, it might make sense to tie those milestones together.
All right, so SWIMA now, CoSWID and Rolly descriptor when the two of them are ready to go. Okay, so looking at the charter, the first work item, define a way to provide 3 types of imperative guidance to the correct Sacm collectors. Milestones for that. Yes, or a draft, or is this something we're going to have? We have these work items, and so what I want to know is what specific documents. I mean, the milestones can evolve and change over time, but it seems to me that we ought to have an idea right now of what these drafts are going to be. And some of our drafts already map into this, but, or do portions of this, but.
So this is Hank. Hi. First of all, without a stable architecture, this is impossible to do. Second of all, I think that the Yang push work we do is and the orchestration of filter expressions for Yang push and subscribe notifications is a way to orchestrate instructions. So yeah, that will be a draft, become a draft. But I don't know exactly when. It depends on, I think that the essential Yang push stuff is in working group last call. So I would, everybody who is interested in this line here with the Yang expressions should be maybe visiting NetConf and come to hum, I think was the expression.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave.
So I was just going to respond to the first point about providing different types of guidance. So we have Rolly as a general purpose method of allowing any kind of guidance to be retrieved for use. And we've been working on information types within Rolly to define specific types of security automation guidance that can be, sent to a collector. So an example draft of that would be the configuration descriptor draft, which is a current personal draft. There's also the software descriptor, which I think speaks more to like what to collect from target endpoints, which is, I guess, number 2. Which target endpoints to collect from sounds to me like it's some kind of command that needs to be orchestrated. And number 3, how quickly after an attribute change needs to be collected sounds like a policy around collection. Those are things that could be also provided using Rolly. We haven't specifically been thinking about what that would look like yet.
So, go ahead, Adam. As the observation seems to be that there's a lot of work going on with kind of Yang models, COSWID, et cetera, that to me feels like mechanisms to enable collection, which I would kind of think of, if I look at some kind of vertical stack of operation, those are methods that are at the very bottom. And then I look at Raleigh and I think, boy, that's kind of at the top. It's a method of kind of sharing and distributing that. The middle seems really, really fuzzy still. And it's not clear to me that, and I think the hackathons have helped a lot, but it's not clear to me that where we're coming from on top and where we're working at from bottom actually know that they're going to a single spot. I think we've gotten to the point via hackathons that we're going to the same neighborhood at least. That's positive. I'd like to end up in the same house. And feel free to disagree with me on that, but that's kind of my impression at this point. Now, okay, Adam, go.
Yeah, I guess Adam Montville, contributor, I guess, at this point, right? So, yeah, I kind of feel like the collection we've got. So to me, like the second line here, define extension of IETF NIA to collect and deliver information, from that thing. actual collection, how we express the guidance for that, I don't think we have anything really set. Even if we have Rolly to deliver it, we don't have anything set for that yet. Right? So we are going to need a way to express that. And I think, Dave, you mentioned, I can't remember exactly what you mentioned. You mentioned like a configuration, I forgot what you called it. Thank you. Is it
Dave Waltermeyer. So this text says define a way to provide 3 types of guidance. And so that's why I was speaking to Rolly. I think to your point, though, we do need to get to, and this is maybe where the squishy middle that Chris was talking about comes into play. We do need to get to defining what that guidance looks like at some point. But until we get to that point, it doesn't necessarily have to stop us from working on the mechanism that can provide that guidance. And in fact, there are existing proprietary forms of guidance out there already that can be provided using a standardized mechanism like Rolly. So I think there's value in focusing on more of those kind of information exchange mechanisms without yet standardizing the specifics of the information that will be exchanged.
I'm okay with that. So now let's pivot that back into milestones. So to me, it sounds like, it's going to be really hard to write guidance until we know what the middle looks like. We can make some version of progress on collection and understand we have a bunch of different mechanisms that look like they're moving forward on collection. We have some mechanisms that look like they're moving forward kind of on sharing. We can potentially, in my mind, set some reasonable targets around that. And then there's the hard work that needs to be done to be able to define how we're going to talk about, after we do those collections in different formats, how we create guidance and repository to be able to work on that middle part. Does that sound reasonable to people? Yeah?
Yeah, Adam, yeah, that sounds reasonable. I mean, let's put a stake in the ground, go that way, and if we need to change, we change.
All right, so Hank, your comment was that, if we're going to do the Yang collection, we need to really have Yang push, get to last call. So if that comes up for last call this meeting, then, presumably we can have something a little firm, for whatever that means, by next meeting on Yang collection. Does that?
With firm, what do you mean?
Well, so firm means that if you have working group last call on Yang push, then a lot of the ambiguity comes out of what you can write for your Yang push collection. And that means that, say, by at least by London, we can have something that we can really argue about, and that by Montreal, we could potentially anticipate last call. Does that timeline seem crazy?
We could write a part that is architectural and defines the control plane procedures of how to orchestrate that specific part, yes. It would be a portion of a solution that is adhering to a non-existing architecture, yes.
Can we cut collection from orchestration to some extent?
Yeah, that is 2-sentence draft. Use Yang push.
Touche.
Shweta, Cisco. A question about attestation. Would there be scope to include that in this charter, or we just wait for, or is it part of something else to collect attestation data of all the collection things that is being proposed in this charter?
I don't know that I have a good answer, but folks who want to stand up, Dave, Hank, anybody?
Just to add to that, I think attestation is very interesting. And if you're trying to do continuous monitoring, knowing that you're monitoring something that isn't hacked is a plus.
Eric, it was hard to hear you, but so sorry, Nancy. I think the answer is yes, from the standpoint of our charter is talking about posture, guidance, collection, assessment. And so from that perspective, the type of information, whether it's attestable or not, I would think is in scope. But that's Nancy's opinion.
I would think, so I'm jumping in line, Hank. I would think, yeah, attestation is in scope. I think there's a nuance between when you collect data that's attestation versus just data collection. Attestation comes with some kind of security bound, ability to assert the level of trust in that data. And it's not clear to me that the goal isn't to be able to collect both and put them side by side.
Hi, this is Hank, and this is my IoT director and TCG liaison head on. It happens to be that I'm kind of familiar with attestation. And I think today the red email list will start as a non-workgroup email list about remote attestation, which, for example, is I think we're talking about here, not attestation. And I think the important things for Sacm are the conveyance of evidence and not attestation. You can do attestation with that, but I think what we in Sacm can do is create security posture that is evidence or collect it, but we are not in charge of creating it. And we are not in charge of appraising it. We are solely in charge of producing a thing that is processing it, because evidence appraisal by a verifier in a remote attestation procedure is super complex. And it would be, I think, half of the complexity we already created in Sacm already. And just saying, yeah, we want to also do that is a huge scope creep. So be very careful how much verification, appraisal via verifier we include here.
So Dave Waltermeyer, so I don't think we're actually working on attestation here, at least in its entirety, but it seems to me like we're building some of the building blocks that could be used as part of an attestation solution. And right. And so in my mind, some of those building blocks that we're working on here is a method of collection, which is something like Yang push, along with the Yang models that we're collecting data for. And it may be useful to create some guidance around what Yang models to use to collect from what devices. I think that's kind of what Frank and company are trying to do. I think another thing that we're trying to do here is define a method of evaluation. So when you've collected data, you want to be able to figure out if that matches some expectation. We have some ideas on how to do that, that evaluation, how to make a statement of what's expected and how to compare that against what has been collected. And then I think we're also talking about providing data-driven guidance. We like to use terms like imperative and declarative and all of that, but what I think we're trying to do is we're trying to both describe and provide the data that is necessary to have a data-driven approach to collecting the posture, to performing the evaluation, and so those are the pieces that I think we're talking about here in very simple terms. Is there agreement around that?
I don't know if I want to chair hat off. I don't know if I want to define a method to do to do evaluation more than I want to provide infrastructure that lets people develop evaluations to a method that allows people to develop guidance.
Hi, this is Hank. I think here we could maybe actually use the term baseline. So maybe Sacm provides a set of baseline evaluation capabilities, and then you can build on that. Okay, I heard a lot of no here next to me, neutral parties. And just a thought, just a comment. Also, I don't really know what data-driven means.
So meaning that we don't want to hard code into tooling what is collected and what is evaluated. We want to allow a policy or some other form of expression to be delivered to the tool that will then drive the tool to perform different types of collections, different types of evaluations. We want to make that more dynamic. I think that's been an ongoing thread in our Sacm conversations. We don't want to pin the tool down though. Yeah, content driven is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I can totally understand content driven if you define information types and content types, enumerate them, and then somehow tell how they're related and should be compared, for example. I'm absolutely fine with that. This gives structure to the process. But just saying, yeah, you should be free to compare everything with everything is like doing nothing. It's not absolutely, yeah, exactly. That is a problem we are trying to solve. So if we have a list of information types and content types, create a taxonomy maybe with that, and then say, yeah, this type of information typically requires this and this type of information in order to be evaluated, then you can have an abstraction with content type definition and then see what fits. And that makes total sense. If that is data driven, I'm behind that.
Yes, that's what I mean.
So the clarification is data-driven is really content-driven.
Karen, can I tie that back to the
I would love for you to tie it back. That's exactly what I'm looking for here, actually.
So when we're talking about providing guidance, I think we're talking about providing that content, that can be used to drive collection, that can be used to drive the evaluation, and we're talking about developing the mechanisms that are used to provide that content. So when we say define a way to provide 3 types of guidance, what we're saying is we're talking about the mechanism that provides content. Right, and so Adam just said we need to define what that content is.
Right. So, I mean, put yourself in my shoes. I need to enter milestones. And so I'm looking for a document that says this because that's what milestones are in the IETF.
Right.
So
So what I was saying before, I was proposing that we can use Rolly as a method of providing that content, and that we work on drafts to describe information types, which are classes of content that can be provided over Rolly, and that maybe at some point in the future we'll get to defining the form of those of specific kinds of content, but that's not that doesn't necessarily have to be a priority right now.
So, okay, so what we've said, let's look at those milestones, right? So CoSWID early 18, Raleigh software early 18, right? I put down a place marker for ECP in mid 18. Okay. the types of collection we've talked about gathering so far in the working group include PT. So ECP is the posture attribute, knee posture attributes, right? We have Yang data models. We have SWID. We've talked about separately, like WMI is actually in the charter, and what was the other one? Oval. So that gives me 5 different raw data formats coming in for collection. Given the history of Sacm and the religious war that breaks out when we try and pick one of those, I'd like to put a place marker down where we talk about how to not pick one of those and how to only do the minimum amount we need to do to be able to walk across them and define the metadata necessary to go from one to the next to the next.
Sounds great if that would be something to connect. I'm not. I think that is the information type, content type of correlation we just were talking about. This seems to be the metadata that you just meant. Yeah, but there has to be things to connect in order to draw a line. And just a sec. And what I am here at the mic, I wanted to highlight, and maybe I didn't push it to the list because I was tired. I pushed the first Yang module for SWID. I submitted it before the submission deadline, actually. No, it's an individual document at the moment. But I will push it to the list because I've actually forgotten. It became to me that there is a Yang module for software identification now. But I forgot to tell you about it. I'm sorry.
So,
all right. So Nancy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I was just going to add, we've been talking about the different data models that could connect for that content-driven either guidance or collection. So I can bring back, so Rolly is one way to express pieces of the transfer. The other way to do it from, okay, don't kill me, an asynchronous way, publish subscribe mechanism, is to either do it through Yang push or from a collection and brokering, I can bring back the XMPP grid. So in this list, what we're missing is some of the transfer protocols. I'm just saying XMPP grid would be one of them. Rolly could potentially be one of them as well, right? So Karen, I'm just trying to answer your questions of what's the work that we need to define, right?
Hi, Frank. I'm not very familiar with so many existing method, collection method in Sacm, Rolly or other thing. But I just want to say that for our as a vendor, a network device vendor, currently we widely use the Yang, Yang data model and the netconf mechanism to push or to collect our security related configuration information. So yeah, that's our current condition, and the content in our draft is all implemented in our devices. So I think that's a very mature thing that we can standard to do. So that's just a vendor's opinion. Yeah.
Dave will take it.
Can you? This works. Okay, good. I don't know how to say it. I want to say like we need some kind of I don't know, like we talk about the different transfer mechanisms, right? Like when I think of ECP, I think, okay, there's, we're collecting some stuff, it gets sent up to a server, and then ECP, I think, actually talks about storing into a repository, right? What if XMPP grid is part of that? Then do we need to spec an interface actually, like to that repository, so that then there could be the point-to-point connection, or there could be the through XMPP grid way, you know what I mean? Like, to me, it seems like we need to spec some interfaces. Yeah.
Nancy and I were just actually having a brief sidebar about wanting to do something like that. So maybe that is something we could do.
So we're writing it down, mid-18 or fall?
Say that again. What is that?
Mid-18 or fall of 18?
Fall.
Fall.
Fall of 19.
18.
This is Dave again. One of the things that I think we need to come to terms with in this draft is I think there's a role for guidance to be exchanged between organizations as well as within an organization, and the transports that we may want to use may vary based on those needs, as well as the discovery mechanisms, the ways of initially determining where to go to get those versus tracking changes that are occurring within repositories. So one of the things that I've thought about over the longer term is, Rolly is really great for discovering sort of an initial set of content that an organization may provide, but it's not great for identifying changes that are occurring as they occur, within that repository. And so maybe there's a way also to sort of connect together Atom Pub for syndication and XMPP for notification as part of that. I think Peter St. Andre had done an early Atom Pub draft that was talking about using XMPP. So that could be maybe work that we could resurrect. But I think to Adam's point, we first need to kind of define the ecosystem, I think, in a more useful way to. Sure.
You're volunteering, Adam?
I just want to, I agree with all that intra-organization kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to tackle like the simplest cases first. I don't know if that's like a Captain Obvious kind of statement or what, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to think too hard about the edge cases. I'd rather get something working on a simple case and then iterate over that.
So chair hat on, I'd like to continue that the hackathons provide some, drivable moments for us to actually resolve issues and make tangible progress that informs kind of, draft writing and what we can build. So I kind of agree with Adam's keep it simple, stupid, and then we'll add on the complexity later. I think we've lost the.
Yeah, I think we've sort of taken this conversation as far as we can take it. I still find it a tiny bit frustrating that we're unable to identify concrete milestones in some spaces, but
I think we can get to that. This is Dave. I think we can get to that soon. And I think we actually do have some that we can continue to work on, like the configuration descriptor work, like some of the ongoing Rolly work that we're already doing. I think we should also maybe add some calendar milestones for doing things as far as more hackathon work. I'd like to see us get better though about getting knowledge out of the hackathon work. And I don't mean
to take us from the shining tower to the pit of despair here, but you know, we're doing a lot of interesting things in the hackathon, but I don't think we're doing a good job at communicating all of this integration work that we're doing across all of these different groups, you know, to in a way that folks that are not intimately involved in the hackathon can actually understand. We didn't have any slides at this meeting to talk about the work that we did at the hackathon, and that would have been a really great way to actually brief people about, you know, this is what we did, and these were the successes that we had, and these were the problems that we found, and these are the things that we think should be worked on. And I think that's a missed opportunity. I think we should find ways to do more of that.
So I agree with your comments about it would be nice to get more out of the hackathon. And I think that there's a fair amount of good work going on. But if I were to take myself outside of this working group and look at the charter that we've submitted with these high-level work items, and we can't define milestones that map to those work items, that to me is a logic disconnect. Now, maybe we can get it resolved shortly, but to be honest, I thought this would be like a 5-minute exercise, and we would go down through those work items, and we're like, okay, this maps to this maps to this, this maps to this, and we'd be done. And now we're 20 or 30 minutes into this, and we're not done. That's kind of, it shouldn't be this hard.
Kathleen Moriarty, AD, thank you. Yeah, that's a concern, and it will be for the IESG reviewing this. I have this slated to be reviewed on Friday, but it sounds like you need more time.
Well, that was, I mean, I would prefer to have it reviewed and done on Friday. I mean, it's been floating around now for months.
Can we get?
But if we as a working group can't define, 5 to 10, I mean, Chris is busy over here typing, so maybe.
So, I mean, if we can get the milestones to me by Thursday night,
Right.
that match back to the charter, and it's real clear that you're doing crisp work, I think that's going to help the rest of the IETF understand what Sacm does, right? Because the comments you're seeing from the IASG is it's a little nebulous. They don't quite get it.
Right.
And it's because it's a space none of them have worked in. So I think it's our job to make it clear to them the importance of this work and showing the concrete deliverables. I only got up to talk about timeline and really, you guiding me as to when this should go before the IESG again, right? Because I have it slated for Friday, but I can push it out.
I mean, I would like to see I would like it to remain on the agenda for Friday. I'm not willing to give up on that quite yet.
Great.
And I'm not saying that the milestones that we have to define have to fully flesh out every one of those work items, but there needs to be a clear mapping between these abstract work items that we've defined and concrete milestones.
Right.
Maybe
And-
not all of them, but at least a good portion of them.
Right. And the milestones can evolve. They don't have to be tied to a charter review. So if you get some main core ones that are the current go forward, that's fine. You can add more.
Right. But, as part of the charter, I mean, it was clear. I think it was Benoit said, where are your milestones?
Well, and I
So-
think taking heed to Benoit's advice from the interim call, in terms of reuse of existing technologies and making that very clear is going to be very important to him.
Right.
So showing that in the milestones, I think be really careful to make sure that's done.
Right.
Thank you.
Hank?
Hi, this is Hank. Yeah, just connecting to the request from Benoit, I think that is kind of easy because this is the work I think we have the most concrete progress made in. And Eric, I think you would agree with that. So this is very visible. And then addressing Dave's comment, first of all, we have hackathon slides. We could have just pulled them up. Second of all, I was at the OCF meeting on Friday and did a PR interrelationship presentation of Yang Push in our working Sacm here. We have slides in NetConf that highlight the hackathon output. We have slides in Core that elaborate on how this will be done in Komai. We have slides in the Thing-to-Thing research group
Hank,
that
just to stop you
identify
here.
now.
Hank?
The visibility is high at the moment, higher than ever. And
Hank,
Mhm.
I don't think this is a point worth dwelling on a lot. I think Dave's point was it would have been nice to have a slides here. That's fine. We didn't have them. We'll move on. No need to discuss it any further. It's not on, and it's not only on you, Hank. Huh? Yeah. Adam is up here accepting responsibility. So you're not going to talk about slides, right?
No, no, no.
Excellent.
I'm talking about milestones. So this is Dave. We actually have, don't we have milestones for some of the existing work that we haven't yet completed? So we have probably three or four drafts for which we already have milestones, right?
Right, but we're putting in a draft charter with 8 or 9 work items and no milestones associated with them.
Sure.
Or a few milestones associated with them. So
Right.
that's my only point. I mean, if we're rechartering, we ought to be able to list what our milestones are for our recharter.
Okay.
All right, so I think we've had a fair conversation on this. I think we need to continue it on the list. Chris is busy over here typing up a list of potential milestones, and I'm sure he will email it to all of us shortly, and we can discuss on the list. But, I mean, they don't have to be specific draft names, but they need to be like 4 or 5 or 6 words that says we're going to do a document that addresses this. All right. Any last comments on what's on the screen? Uh-oh.
This is Nancy. So just a nitpick. Not clear to me that IETF does APIs. So when you say data interchange APIs, I think you mean interfaces?
GSS API.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
So, any other last minute comments? Excellent. Thank you all. And please contribute to the milestone conversation on the mailing list. Thank you. And thank you, Adam.
There are some other early drafts that we'd like to do. We'd like to do one on mobility guidance, one on integration guidance, which Adam started to check forward on the checklist items, right? I mean, those are things that we can list. Like, there's risks and listing like 10, 15 documents. And I think that's where I have some reluctance to brainstorm up a whole bunch of work. So I think providing with guidance information, it can be done in multiple transports today. Nancy was saying, well, we can use XXDB to Roller was designed to that. So we either need to pick one as a group, or we need to come up with some way of defining the spaces in which those coexist. I think we can do the latter and make that interesting. That's what Tracy and I would say.
So I would like to do that. Right?
Yeah.
Define the squishy middle and how the squishy middle function doesn't have to solve all of the problems.
Right.
It just gives you the concept of how we get there and also hard parts of this problem. We can
Right, and then after that, we can again start to work on what is the data. We've already doing some. Yeah, I think that's really good. So, yeah. And I just had one, it's really, I think it's hard for us to get new people to understand what we're doing. There's a lot of people that are doing immigration work. And I think it's all really good work. And I've been trying my best to follow it. But unless you're intimately involved in it, I don't know how you understand how all this stuff fits together. I don't know how you really have to bring the people in. It's very different. We're presenting this work in other forms, like I see that stuff, but we're not speaking about this work actually addresses the Sacm. And people actually do some work to actually look at how all this integration actually affects Yeah. That's all very important. And I would actually like to see people using it for this purpose.